As a bricklayer from East London, I wanted to know how people were successful. And even though I was working 32 hours a day, why I was not. And so I went out to have those conversations. Now, £245 a bike or ugly doesn't tend to get in those conversations much. So I needed to bring something to the party. So as a doorman, it started off, I knew where all the nightclubs were. I knew where all the private parties were. Bit by bit, my connections and my ability to access and to dream up these experiences got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I ended up founding the world's leading experiential concierge firm.
Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Steve Sims, who makes the impossible possible. He's going to teach us how to go for stupid, and that's a good thing. Today's quote comes from Carl Sagan. Avoidable human misery is more often caused not so much by stupidity as by ignorance, particularly our ignorance about ourselves. That's kind of our theme today. How to stop being miserable and living full out the life you were meant to live. Do you want to know the secret to how to make amazing things happen? Listen in, and Steve and I will share this simple action that makes everything possible. By the way, do you know anyone whose work with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk sent people down to see the wreck of the Titanic? Or closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party and then had Andrea Botticelli serenade them while they eat their pasta at the feet of David's statue? You do now. And he is labeled the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. He's a best-selling author. Let's meet our guest, Steve Sims, and learn from him. Welcome to Richer Souls, Steve Sims. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
And I am very excited for our conversation. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
So I lived just outside of London, son of a bricklaying family, and money was kind of like sex. You knew it went on, but you weren't supposed to talk about it. And so I think the first lessons I got were very negative. You didn't discuss it. It was something you held private. And my mum and dad, being in the building industry, sometimes you get a bunch of work, sometimes you get no work. We were constantly going between, we have money, do you want a new pair of sneakers, to we've got no money, just stick some sticky tape around them. And so it was a very confusing period that I knew something was going on, but I couldn't talk about it. And you don't talk to your kids about money. That's the grown-ups thing. So I grew up with a very negative, ignorant, and stupid lack of education. But I would say education because I was told this and I was forced this and I was indoctrinated on this way of thinking. only to get into my teens and then into my early years to realize that's not the way it should be done. And that's when the real education started, because I knew so little about it. I lost it. I screwed up. I nearly went bankrupt a few times and realized how the education was done so badly for me in the early stage.
Is that a British thing about being, I mean, I know an American thing, we don't talk about money, but I'm wondering how much of a British thing it is too.
I'm not quite sure it's British. Definitely think it's cultural, because there's still countries in the planet that, you don't talk about money. It's disgusting. So there's still some cultural places like that. But I think it was a generational thing. You see, bearing in mind, parents were in the war. So they went through food stamps and lack of money and that kind of thing. So they couldn't really teach my parents what handling money was like when we were in the middle of a world war. So I think it was very generational. I think today, especially with podcasts like this, you realize money's not a dirty subject. It's something that you need to be educated on in order to be able to harness it to benefit from it. So there's a lot more conversations. The downside is there's a lot of conversations on money today that is spoken by ignorant, stupid people, or by people trying to sell something. Hey, you need to understand about crypto, so buy my coin. That kind of crap. So I think it's generational. I don't think it was the British thing.
You know what's funny though? What you say with regards to that is, and Warren Buffett says it as well. He goes, nobody wants to get rich slowly. So if I tell you how to buy crypto this weekend and triple your money, you'll give me money for that. If I tell you how to build wealth over 10 years, no, thank you. I'm not interested.
No one's bought a course, but that isn't just money. Bearing in mind, if you look at everything from TV, how many TV shows do you watch now where the main actor or the main character is killed in the first few seconds, and then the program goes on to show what happened 3 years prior to that happening? We're in a instant gratification society. Instacart, Amazon. I've heard people moaning now that Amazon Prime can take up to 2 days to get to you now. It's just ridiculous. You remember the world of dial-up where we had to wait 15 minutes to be able to get onto the internet? I just think in today's world, we want it. We want it now, not in 10 seconds. And if it takes any hard work, surely there's got to be a course I can buy that will mean I won't have to do that.
So how do you change that culture?
Oh, you don't.
Okay.
How do you change it? You don't. Or can't you? You can, but you shouldn't. You see, anyone that does change that mindset to that way of thinking, we've got an unfair advantage. While all of those people are plowing money into stupid things and doing stupid, ignorant things and getting our education from that, only to come back to the exact same point of, hey, it takes time, it takes stability, it takes structure. They'll get there eventually, but in the meantime, you're ahead of the curve. So yes, you can change it, but I challenge you, do you really want to?
As my kids were growing up and we were dealing with education, that was always my internal conflict. Do I try and make this better, or do I just realize if I shut up, they'll have like 6 steps ahead of everyone and they're going to win in life?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. We've all come from look, as parents, we came from different generations, different time, different technology. And we've been on this planet for thousands of years, and still every new parent thinks they're going to do something different, and we all get it wrong in some way or shape or form. I was joking with my son the other day, and then it got a little bit dark and serious in the fact that I would do my paper round in the morning, and then I would catch 3 different buses to get to school, come home, and I would take a different bus because I'd end up at the building site where I'd clean up the mess from my dad's work. Now, you try and get a 16-year-old to do that today, and they will scream child abuse. And now, I'm obviously not doing that. I live up in the hills in Los Angeles. I live very well. And my kids are upset if they've got a car that's 3 years old. So, I don't know the good, the bad. getting those scrapes and the pain that you go through by not having money creates the education on what to do with it when you get it. So I don't know. There's fors and against in everything.
And I think that's been the biggest struggle for wealthy parents who raise kids, because the normal circle of life is, the first one works hard, like your parents work real hard. You then started building on their success. Now your kids have everything. And then, at what point do they lose it all because they're not willing to do the work?
No, you're so right there. You think you're saving them pain, but in some aspects you're saving them education or depriving them of education. I learned everything I know about money by first losing it all and realizing I knew nothing. And so I do try to teach my kids, but at the same extent, you've also got to help them make their own mistakes. And if you're not making mistakes, and if you're not getting scars, and if you're not getting scratches, then you're not trying. And if you're not trying, you're failing. So you've got to give them a little bit. My son set up an internet business a while back. Boastfully, I know anyone who knows anyone, and I could get him to anyone that he needs to get to. So he sets this internet business up. We realized there were some things that weren't stable about it. And of course, what happens? It crashes, it burns, there's problems, he can't rectify it again. There's all this shit. But we tried to help him to so point, but you know what kids are like. They get to a certain point, they're like, Dad, don't tell me I know everything. And it's at that moment in time where you've got to go, keep your guard up and go forward. And, he got a couple of smacks in the nose, and now he comes back going, yeah. And I'm like, I did try to tell you. So first lesson of the game, listen to people. Listen to as many people as possible and listen hard.
Was there a turning point where you finally started to learn about money and do things differently?
Yeah. So I was always, money was the tail that wagged the dog. And for me, what would happen was I used, for anyone that doesn't know me, I worked with billionaires. So I was getting wires from $100,000. I think the biggest wire we got was like 4.5 mil. So, we're constantly getting serious money coming through our account. And you'd look at the bank account and there was nothing better than I would open up in the morning, have me coffee, open up the bank account, and I'd see like 3-something mil in there. And this was in the 90s, in the early 2000s. And I'm like, yeah, great. And then I would react to that by doing nothing. So I would become lazy. Why? Why wouldn't I work hard? Why do I need to? I've got 3.5 mil just sitting in the bank account. Money doesn't last long, especially when you're traveling and you've got tastes and stuff like that. So then what happens is you start flying through the cash and you suddenly start realizing, shit, I'm running out of money fast and I've got about 2 months left. So then what you do is you start hustling and you get into business then with the people you shouldn't be getting into business with. So I noticed that when things were good, I was meeting good people. When money was bad, I was getting into deals that were stressing me out, wrecking my home life. And it was like, I've got to get money in. I'm hustling it. There was no even keel. And I realized that I responded to money very, very badly. And then I saw a conversation with a guy called Magic Johnson. And it was the most abstract conversation we were having. And I wasn't even really in it. There were 2 other guys with him, and I was just on the sidelines nodding and, shaking my head every now and then. And one of the guys brought up money. And he said that when he was in the NBA, a lot of the people that were playing went bankrupt. You had like 4 years, 5 years, you were a sportsman, everyone knew you, and then you were done. Now, today, the second you get a contract, your agents and managers are trying to get you book deals, sneaker deals, T-shirt lines, and you're trying to franchise your brand out. We're very focused today on branding. We weren't back then. We were focused on notoriety and being famous, okay? Not monetizing it. And I remember Magic saying that all of his buddies were going bankrupt. So he went to see this agent at CAA and he said, I don't want to be them. I want to make sure that everything's set. And he said, well, okay. He said, let me ask you a question. Are you the best in your sandpit? Are you the best in your field? And Magic was like, yeah, I am, kind of all cocky. And he said, is everyone else that supports you and looks after you, are they the best in that field? And he realized they wasn't. And I went home that night and I actually remember speaking to Claire and I said, hang on a minute. We've got an accountant that we found on some kind of Craigslist because we hate accountants. We got a lawyer, and I hate lawyers, so we've got the cheapest freaking lawyer in the planet. Financial advisor, who bloody needs that? Planner, estate planner, who do you need? No way. And we realized how unstable we actually were. So we said, well, okay, let's take a page from Magic Johnson. I know I'm bad with money, so let me surround myself with people that are phenomenal with money. And I remember it cost me $20,000 to get some forensic accounting done. And then all of a sudden, it was about $6,000 I had to pay these guys per month for the first 3 months. It went down after that, but it was like $6,000. And I was like, gee, $6,000? I could be buying a new motorcycle. I could be flying to Italy. I could be doing anything for that $6,000. And of course, like most people, wisely, you go, well, what's the $6,000 going to get me? Is it going to be worth it? And then at the end of the 3 months, you see the tax you're saving. You see the estate planning. You see the protection you've now got. And I'm like, damn, I never had that before. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're good at what you do, is everyone around you good at what they do? And 9 times out of 10, they're not. So that was my lessons in money.
And it's important to build that team of A players. But I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in the beginning, paying for that, or even more so, one of the things I've noticed is there's a lot of people who are really good at marketing, and then there's a lot of people who are really good at doing what they do.
Oh, yeah.
And the two may not be the same. And so we get caught up in the hype.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, look, pre-COVID, people were buying courses from idiots standing up against cars that they didn't own, going, hey, if you want to be me, buy my $49 course and I'll teach you how to be a millionaire. Page 1, sell a $49 course. It was that kind of bullshit that was going around, which has created two things. The hunger that people have for a comfortable life will always be there. The source at which you get it from, that's changed over the years. And the snake oil salesmen, have been around since the cowboy days. They're just wearing flash suits and fake watches now. So you've just got to be really careful about where you take that information from. You understand what you're trying to get. You understand where it's coming from. But before you do anything, check out if the source that you are getting it from is credible. It ain't that hard.
Well, I think it is. It depends. There's some really good marketers out there.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true.
And they've got the fake, they've got the real car, but it's still not.
Oh, there's some fakes out there with jets. So yeah. there's a friend of mine said there's a lot of money in stupidity. So, if you can find that vein of people that are that desperate and have a checkbook, they said there's nothing better than a stupid person with a big credit card. You just got to be really careful where you go.
That you do. So we're here to chat about your book. What inspired you to write the book, Go for Stupid?
Oh, dear. Aggravation. And I'm not even joking on that. I wrote a book, 8 years ago, called Blue Fishing. And it was a bestseller. Writing a book, and you know this, writing a book is not an easy thing. And it can also be like, being your own therapist. There were days when I would write a chapter and I'd stay up all night going, oh my God, do I really want people to read that? And it was that kind of thing. So I always vowed after Blue Fishing never to write another book. I was done. I'd written one, bestseller, great, thanks, done. And then all of a sudden, COVID came along. Now, I've always been about communication, reach out to people, you know, nurture relationships, leverage relationships, have relationships help you as long as you help them. So I've always been a relationship and a communication guy. And then COVID came across, and all of a sudden people are bitching, going, oh my God, we can't go out, we can't connect, we can't communicate with each other. We had more ways to communicate with each other in COVID than at any other time in the planet. Yet at a time of being hugely connected, we've never been more disconnected. And during that period of COVID, we had people going onto Facebook going, well, I've binge watched The Sopranos. How else can I waste my life? What else shall I binge watch? And I just thought to myself, hang on a minute. We've been given time. Now, I don't know about you guys, but me, I'm on a plane once a month or twice a month. I am always traveling, okay? And eventually when I get to enough's enough, I don't know what that'll be, I'll stop traveling. But at this moment in time, I travel because I enjoy it. But COVID came across. I didn't have to drive anywhere. I didn't have to fly anywhere. Anyone I wanted to talk to, I knew they couldn't drive or fly anywhere. So Zoom became my best friend. When Zoom was getting sketchy, FaceTime was my best friend, WhatsApp video, Facebook Messenger video. There were millions of ways for us to be able to communicate with each other. And I loved it. But I was getting very angry with the world. So I started poking the bruise. You know, hey guys, you've never been given this time before. Don't waste it, you know, because those that are doing good, they're not, you know. I just started coming out and I started to get more and more aggravated. And then I got really pissed off. Because during COVID, a time that we couldn't connect and greet each other, two societies were born. One of them was the cancel culture, and the other one was the gotcha society. And there were haters out there trolling the internet, trying to find where you dressed up as a penguin in 1997, and now it's like, look at him, he dressed as a penguin. How inconsiderate he is to the tribe of penguins of Iceland. Let's cancel his business. We started canceling people. Not only could we not connect, we were now eating each other. And this really bothered me. And all the people that were doing great things were still doing great things, but all the poor people in the planet, poor in mindset, poor in education, poor in knowledge, poor attitude, started throwing hate. How many people openly hate Elon Musk, Larry Page, Steve Jobs? All of these people that are doing things. I don't care if you support them, but they're out there trying to make a difference, and they ain't listening to your shit. So I started to get very aggravated, and then I looked into something. Is it a today problem? Are we just hating on each other and hating on each other's success and attempt because of the world we're in now with the internet and social platforms? So I started looking back in time and doing a bit of research on my time. And I realized that no, we've been arseholes always. You know, Henry Ford, there were people that would literally protest outside the gates of his plants going, hey, cars are bad. And Henry Ford always said, if I listened to the majority of people, I'd have just made a faster horse. You know, there were people hating on Walt Disney, that he was a cult leader. We've had people hating on us forever. They've just got noisier now because they have access to the internet. And sadly, that's causing a lot of people to hold back on what they go for, hold back on their dreams, hold back on their aspirations, and worse, hold back on their standards. So I started writing blogs and articles, and people said to me, this should go into a book. And I thought no one's going to want it because it just is me telling people how we should go for stupid goals and the art of achieving them. And so bit by bit by bit, I realized that what I'd been doing was a chapter, and we released a book. And we released a book with a big urge for people to dare to do things differently, dare to stand out. Don't stand out by first fitting in. You were never built to. But actually start pushing things and do something different. And if people aren't laughing at your goals and aspirations, then they're not big enough. Go for them. So that's why I did the book. I didn't expect it to be a hit, but hey, it has. So it's obviously resonated with a few people, but I want people to dare to be different.
You know what? We really haven't talked about this in between period of you. You actually provide amazing experiences for people. In a sense, you bring about, like if I sat with a friend and said, hey, I want to do this, they're like, oh, that's stupid. You'll never be able to do that. You make it happen. You literally do that. Can you just share a couple of your favorites of experiences that you have helped people essentially go for stupid?
Yeah. I'll explain why it happened and then what those things were. I wanted education. As a bricklayer from East London, I wanted to know how people were successful. And even though I was working 32 hours a day, why I was not. And so I went out to have those conversations. Now, £245 a bike or ugly doesn't tend to get in those conversations much. So I needed to bring something to the party. So as a doorman, it started off, I knew where all the nightclubs were. I knew where all the private parties were. Bit by bit, my connections and my ability to access and to dream up these experiences got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I ended up founding the world's leading experiential concierge firm that made the magical happen. In fact, Forbes called me the real life Wizard of Oz. Some of those things were piano lesson with Elton John, drum lessons with Guns N' Roses. I had a client want an amazing dining experience in Florence to show off to his mother-in-law and father-in-law. So I closed down the Accademia de Galleria, which is the famous museum that houses Michelangelo's David. Set a table of 6 up at the feet of David. 9 o'clock at night, I brought them into a dinner in their own private museum at the feet of the most iconic statue in the planet. And then for shits and giggles, when he got to his main course, I brought in Andrea Bocelli to serenade him. So I'm known for doing the amazing, but it was never my job. I knew if I could do this for you, I would have your attention. And if I had your attention, I could have dinner with you and go, hey, Johnny, how do you diversify your income? How do you get taxes down? How do you recruit people? How do you look at a deal and go, that's a good deal? And that was the whole education. Of course, that was being done for like 25 plus years. I've worked with everyone from Richard Branson, Elon Musk to the Vatican. And I've asked some very famous people and some people that are not famous that own things like countries. And so I've been able to get that education. And now what I do is I openly speak all over the planet on stages, teach, train, and coach people on how they can go for stupid goals and how these people did it and why you should.
One of the biggest ahas that I kind of got early in that book was, and I think it was that first dinner, it was like, well, how did you make this happen? And the guy said to you, well, you asked.
Yeah, that was a British term. That was a brick in the bollocks. That was, you think, they always say that it's small hinges that swings big doors. So when you're looking to do something magnificent, you think, oh my God, I've got to be magnificent, or I've got to know magnificent people, or, the angels have got to be shut. Sometimes the most basic of things, like picking up a phone, instead of writing someone an email, pick up a phone. In fact, this was one of the things that we used to do. If someone used to email us something, we would get the email and then we would phone them. Now, this is a little bit cheeky, but we'd phone them and we'd say, hey, Rocky, I'm in the car, but I saw your email and I just wanted to talk to you while I'm in the car. What did you mean about that? And just try to get a little bit more deeper into the conversation. Now, here's the dumb thing. The amount of people that used to sit in my office phoning people up going, hey, I'm in the car, and they'd be right in the middle of the office. But we used to use the car as the excuse to enter into a conversation. And we would get so much depth and core out of that question by actually verbally speaking to people. And here's the other daft thing. People would go, no one calls me other than you, Steve. So we found that the most miraculous things can happen by the smallest of action. And in the book, as you've said quite rightly, I managed to pull off that amazing dinner. And I couldn't understand how I had done it until the guy literally just turned around and said, no one's ever asked before. And you did. And it gutted me, but then also made me realize that we don't ask for what we want. We ask for what we think we can get. and what we can achieve. But if you don't know what you're capable of, how far are you going to push it? Me, bricklayer from London, I'm going to push it to the point of opening up my own museum. See if I can do it. And I've been amazed at the amount of times I've actually done that and put myself out there. I've actually achieved it.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. I think, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think it comes out of the Bible. And Jesus says, ask for what you want and you shall get it. And he goes, everyone asks for what they already have. So what you said, right? It's thousands of years of human nature. We don't really ask for what we want. We ask for what we already have. We don't dream big. Since the book is released, have there been additional insights or things that you've learned or some ahas that you didn't expect to happen?
I expect everything. So, there was nothing that kind of came to me unexpected. See, I'm the kind of guy that wants growth. So I want information. I want feedback. So, when I get these things, I've been surprised by some of the people that have reached out to me that read the book. And I'm like, I've had a guy from one of the recent astronauts contacted me and he was like, oh my God, your book. And I'm like, you're an astronaut. You're one of the sharpest guys in the planet. And you're reading a book called Go for Stupid. And he was like, yeah, but had I not gone for stupid, I wouldn't have been going up into space. And I'm like, fair enough. So there's been a few kind of weirdnesses of where the book's actually ended up. But what has surprised me, and again, aggravated me, as you probably guessed by now, I get aggravated quite a lot, is that, and you actually, I'll put you on the spot. You've read the book. You told me you'd read the book. So you've read the book, correct?
Yeah, it's been a month or two, but yeah, I read it a while ago.
Was any of it difficult?
It wasn't difficult. I think it was, part of it was just that eye-opening, and which is why I brought up that question. Like, you just asked, and how often don't we ask? And I'll tell you something, because I've done this, right? You're sitting there and you want to ask and you don't ask, and somebody else asks and they get it. I'm like, damn, that right?
That's the whole point. And now that latter part is where you hit home. None of what I preach and teach and write about is difficult. It's not rocket science. There is nobody out there that cannot read this book and action it and increase their life and their relationships. And in doing so, their profitability, their bank account, their health, their mindset, it's all a resource to it. And the thing that bothers me is people come to me and they go, I just forgot to ask. And this person asked and they got it, or, I was going to make that phone call and then I did. And now I've got this contract. And I'm like, well, how many years did it take you to make that contract? Oh, 12. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, we are literally finding a reason not to do the simplest of things that inevitably will connect one human being with another human being. And you just quoted Jesus. The bottom line of it is, as woke and as educated and as advanced as we think we are, we just want to connect with another person. We just want to feel understood. We want to feel heard. And if we've got pain, we want it solved. And as much as we love Amazon, if Amazon was all we had, we'd be in pain. And the trouble with COVID is we became really bad at communicating. And that's a muscle. If you don't stretch that muscle, if you don't put it in push-ups and stuff, you're going to lose it. If you don't focus on your ability to communicate, you're going to lose it. Whenever I'm in a coffee shop, gas station, wherever, I must look like I'm a lord or something, but I'm like, I'm sending my kids off to go and check where things are and how much is this and when can we, because I want them to confront and to learn the ability to communicate.
It's funny. When COVID hit, I was in the early stages of my business, and literally overnight, everything local canceled. But literally overnight, everything online opened up. And I was able to connect with people that I never would have been able to connect with. I was able to get into groups that I could never have attended because, and not only that, I was going around the world in 7 hours, in the sense that, you start your morning here and your afternoon there and in between. And not only that I have struggled to get back to real life, I'll call it, face-to-face meetings, because on Zoom, everybody shows up on time and they leave on time. And there's no wasted time. I can just hop from place to place, from person to person, conversation to conversation. And if I got to go meet someone somewhere, they're always 20 minutes late to the coffee shop, and who knows when it's going to end. And it's an interesting dynamic. So I kind of started to thrive in COVID, and I enjoyed that.
Here's a couple of things for you to be aware of. The BBC, and I'm not just quoting them because I'm British, but the BBC pushed out a report a while ago, so you can actually check it up. During the 2 years of COVID, bearing in mind, what a lot of people would say was the worst period of our generation and of our life. All right? You can see that look on your face. I don't agree with it either. But during the 2 years of COVID, over 5 million first-time millionaires were registered. There has never been a time, not the tech bubble, not the internet, not the housing market boom. There has never been a time of more first-time millionaires being born than during COVID. Over 5 million people, therefore, just like you, just like me, saw the opportunity that COVID gave us. Now, I travel around the planet and I will watch someone on stage. I will watch someone on TV. I will hear someone on the radio, and I will get my phone out and I have a list. And the list says, need to connect with. That's the title of my list. And then underneath it, it'll be Elon Musk, Richard Branson, the Pope. I will literally put people down there that I want to have a conversation with. Oh, that was good. I'd love to have a conversation with that person. And I'll put it in there. Now, they may say something stupid another time, and I may remove them. But I've been doing that list, I think, since my first ever iPhone. So that list's been around for like 10 years, And over the years, you'll get 2 or 3 people knocked off it, and you'll add another 10, and you'll knock off 5. But it's been growing. But I think it was at something like about 60 people when we entered into COVID. Now, out of that 60 people, a couple of them had died, okay, which I wasn't aware of. So not everyone on that list. Do you know I got through that entire list by June, the first year of COVID? By June, in less than 6 months, I had got through to about 58 people because they couldn't fly. They couldn't go anywhere, and they were looking for communication. And people were like, yeah, I was at home and you reached out. It sounded cool. And I looked at you. Oh, yeah. So what do you want to talk about? I got through my entire list because I had dared a challenge, but also I'd stuck a goalpost there. I wanted that person. And you can't score if you don't know where the goalpost is.
Why don't people take action? Why don't people ask?
Brilliant question. Do you know there used to be a saying in the old days, what would you do today if you knew you couldn't fail? Okay, do you remember that? Okay, mm-hmm. But let's be serious. Most of our empowerment and education comes from when shit hits the fan. Okay, when it goes wrong and we work out how to make it right, we're now experienced, educated, and empowered. Okay, so let's skip over that for a second. But let's change the statement. It's not a case of what would you do today if you knew you couldn't fail. Is what would you do today if you weren't scared of anyone laughing at you? You see, in today's iPhone world, where we're worried about trying something just in case we get mocked, or in case someone says something nasty on Facebook about us, or in case it fails and everyone's like, well, that's a scam. You know, we're incredibly quick to judge and incredibly slow to listen. So in today's world, we're actually scared of putting ourselves out there. We want to, but we don't for fear of people laughing at us and knocking us down. A friend of mine said to me years ago, be so successful you have haters. And I run these mastermind communities called speakeasies, and it's gone. So, I'm not selling anything. And now all over America, we challenge the way you think. So we had 40 entrepreneurs in this room in New Orleans, and we had people specializing on funnels, people specializing on SEO, people specializing on emotional content branding. So it's all business stuff, finances. It's all business stuff over the 2 days. The last speaker of the day on day 2 was one of only a few voodoo priestesses in America. So we're in New Orleans, and this voodoo priestess and her 2 associates come in all dressed in white to talk to us about voodoo. Now, you're an entrepreneur. You're thinking, what the hell's voodoo got to do with my business? But voodoo is a very misunderstood passion and religion, okay? And one of the questions that came at her from one of the guys in the audience was, how do you handle the hate and the misconceptions? And she turned around and she said, well, we don't tune into that station. Why should I spend all of my day convincing people that wouldn't be right for my community to start with? And today we do spend too much time paying attention to the hate. And there's nothing more a hater loves than you getting upset and going, oh, no, you're wrong. And they're like, oh, great. Here we go. I got some attention. Let's play. You're never going to be able to change them. And why should you? They shouldn't be in your sandpit. Don't, as the high priestess says, don't tune into that station.
And I think I heard an analogy of that. If I gave you a present and you didn't accept the present, who would have the present?
You.
Right. So if I gave you hate and you didn't accept the hate, who would have the hate?
Well played. Well played. Yeah. I remember, I think, I don't know if it was Confucius, but someone said that hate is basically like drinking poison and hoping they die.
Yeah, exactly. It's holding a hot coal to throw at somebody and not letting go. And then, you're the one who's burning your hand through that, the whole thing. You mentioned mastermind groups. I know you run a bunch of mastermind groups. What kind of brought you to that? And what are you hoping to do with those?
There's a running theme here I'm realizing that I've never noticed before in a podcast. I started it because I was pissed off. It makes it sound as if I'm always angry. I'm not always angry. But my son and I got into business just before COVID. And so he's in his early 20s. I'm in my 50s, but we're both entrepreneurs. So we're both looking for the new advantage. We're constantly going into masterminds, communities, these mastermind groups and trainings. And I was always pissed off when I would go into a group and they would start to teach us something and we'd spend 25 grand to be a member. And then they'd be like, well, look, we're going to go into this, but not everyone's going to learn that. We're going to hold that back just for our platinum members. And I'm like, so I've joined and I've got an upsell within the first day, and it just really annoyed me. And I noticed that. And if you look this up, the definition of a mastermind is a community that supports and pushes. Okay. It's there to encourage. The community is the mastermind, not the name, not the guy that's got his face on the front of the advert. It's the community. And I noticed that when I was going to these masterminds, it was being run by people going, well, yes, I'm a billionaire and I'm going to share some of my knowledge with you with these lectures. A mastermind is not a lecture, it's a conversation. And we were spending an enormous amount of money going to these things, trying to get smart. And some of them were making us smarter. Some of them were pissing us off. So we thought, well, hang on a minute. We want that community. We want those people that when the shit hits the fan, I can go, hey, shit alert, who can help me? And have people going, I got your back, Steve. That's what I wanted. And so we started asking people, hey, are you happy with Masterminds? Are you happy the way it works? We got a lot of people that weren't. So we built Simms Distillery. And it's quite simply a highly vetted community. No cheerleaders are allowed. We don't want you going, oh, you're so wonderful. That doesn't help anybody. I want people to challenge, support, push. And that's what we built. So we ended up building Simms Distillery because it didn't exist.
All the mastermind groups I'm in, they run like you run yours, where
Perfect.
we challenge each other. You'll get called out. You'll like, hey, you're running a little too fast. You haven't built your foundation, or also like sometimes as all business owners, they're always sprinting around. I'm like, hey, you're sprinting for this. When the sprint's over, what are you doing with your wife? I haven't planned that. Well, you better plan it now because the sprint's going to be over in 6 weeks. You need to call Steve Simms and get something on the books. You better impress her with all the money you just made.
Do you know, it's amazing. I remember a friend of mine, Garrett Gunderson, he said that he was driving down the road one day and his wife turned around to him and she said, you're a great businessman. You're a great speaker. And you're a good husband and a good father. And that's the wrong way round. And today, there's far too many times where we go, but I'm doing this for the family. No, you're not. You're usually doing it for yourself. And you think there's going to be some kind of accolade or medal for you. Fuck that, there's not. And there's no kid that's ever kind of like sat there and gone, I wish my dad would go to work more. It's never happened. So you've really got to focus on your priorities.
And I agree with you. I think part of the problem with that is, when's the last time they had the Father of the Year awards? Right? They don't. Does anybody celebrate that? No. They don't celebrate men. They just don't. Oh, he's a loser. He's staying home, or he didn't do this, or he didn't do that, or whatever it is. And that's unfortunately a shame.
It is. It is. You've really got to understand. We spoke about masterminds, and we spoke about this at the beginning before we started recording. And I said to you quite openly, and you can confirm that I said this. I said, I don't care whose mastermind it is, everyone should be in one. Because a lot of the people in the planet, they're scared of success. They're scared of trying. And if your group is of those people, then you're not going to amount to much. So you need to push yourself by making sure you get into the right group. That could be like listening to podcasts. It could be reading a book. It could be joining a Facebook group. You haven't got to join a mastermind for $100,000. You could very simply just get into the environment that changes the way that you think. I'm a great believer that our head is a sponge. That's a pretty obvious metaphor. But if you stick your head in water, it's only going to saturate with water. If you stick it in old oil from an oil change of your old car, that's all it's going to saturate. If you saturate it with the morning and evening news of negativity, doom and gloom, that's all it's going to be full of. So you've got to make sure that you choose your bucket wisely to consume only what's going to benefit you.
You are the average of the people around you. So be careful who you're putting around you. And I think that's the one thing we don't really take the time to do well, and to curate that good group of people around you, and to ensure that you all come together on a regular basis.
Yep. Exactly.
So what else is pissing you off these days?
I'm sorry. It does sound like I'm always angry. Thankfully, it's not pissing me off. But I do want to disrupt and interrupt as many people as I can. I want them to kind of like take stock of where they are, take stock of what they're doing, take stock of their relationships, their family, and just to go, is this really what I wanted to be? And I've always said, like, would an 18-year-old version of you be proud of where you've come? But I remember Joe Polish said to me, the definition of hell is to meet the man or woman you could have been. And I've always loved that. And so I'm constantly trying new things, constantly pushing myself to become experienced and knowledgeable, not an expert. I class myself as the eternal student. I don't want to be an expert of anything, because being an expert, that's kind of like, it's kind of the end of the journey, isn't it? I don't want to be there, It's all in the journey. So I want to grow. I'm constantly trying things and then finding other people and go, hey, this worked for me. Let's see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, go, oh, well, that didn't. Now let's try something that can. So I'm constantly trying and exploring new things. And I'm a great believer that life is for living. And that's what I want to do.
I call that beginner mindset.
Yeah.
Constantly looking at everything with fresh, new eyes. What I have found is that most people are asleep.
Yes. Asleep and scared.
Asleep and scared. Well, then they're having, it's not the American dream anymore. It's the American nightmare.
You are so accurate. But how many people out there are scared of doing anything because the TV has told them we're in a recession and that politics is against them and that COVID is just there to kind of like tag them so we can follow them around wherever they are in the world. We're listening to the wrong people. And algorithms today, algorithms are great and bad, okay? When I'm looking up motorcycle parts and algorithms are telling the internet, hey, flood Steve with motorcycle parts, thank you very much. But if I spend too long on a bad video that I wish I hadn't seen, but now Instagram's going, oh, he really likes those bad videos, and all of a sudden that's all I'm getting. You physically have to force yourself not to open it so you can disrupt the algorithm and, again, start replacing it with what you do want to see.
Well, pick wisely or flood it with something new or just confuse the crap out of it. And then who knows what you'll get next.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's been some weird times on that. But yeah, it's a tough, but let's put it that way. Today's a moment of action. You can't be a passenger. You are either working it or it's working you. And I remember watching the documentary on social platforms, and it said that, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So don't be a product.
And that is very, very true. If you aren't, then that's the case. What are some of the wildest things you've seen people ask for or do? Like, what's the big kind of stupid things that are possible?
Everything's possible, for a start. And I've had some phenomenal experiences throughout my career. Everything from driving Formula One cars, walking on a fashion catwalk, backstage, on stage. I had a client that wanted to go and get front row tickets to the rock band Journey. We thought that was a bit dull, so we surprised him and get him pulled up on stage, and he actually sang 4 tunes live on stage with the rock band, and is the shortest term lead singer of the rock group at a sold out concert in San Diego. So there's been lots of things that I've done that have created a smile. But then I've also been introduced to the darker side of humanity. I need to be at this concert. I need to be front row because I need a picture, or my boss is in this row. I need to be in front of him. I need to show that I'm more connected. I need the singer to go, hey, Johnny, good to see you again. Something like that. So I can show off. I even had a client in, well, he wasn't a client because we never took him on, but I had a person in Palm Beach contact me that said he wanted to detonate a nuclear warhead. He didn't care where, he just wanted to push the button of the most powerful thing on the planet. So you get to see some sides of humanity that you wish didn't exist. The show off, the aren't I great, I'm better than you, let me belittle you kind of crowd. And that can be a little bit upsetting to know that exists. But all in all, again, it's like choosing your algorithms. Choose your clients, not their checkbook, because even rich people can be dickheads. So focus on what really matters.
And we're big fans of live your life based on your values, not your bank balance.
Yep.
Out of curiosity, how do you get these famous people to do that? Like, how do you convince Journey to let this guy come on stage and sing 4 songs with them? Because I know what the secret is, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, I can tell you this, it's not the money, which surprises everyone. Everyone's always kind of like, oh, how much would it cost? You know, when you're talking to people who earn more than you can make in a year in a minute just on interest, then money is no longer part of the question. And if you can actually want to see a celebrity walk away from you fast, ask how much it will cost. Because no celebrity wants to be a prostitute. They don't want to be bought and sold. Okay? So you've got to establish a reason. You've got to establish a story, an emotion, a trigger, and then go, hey, wouldn't you like to be part of that story? Can you imagine if this guy wakes up in 8 years' time at 2 o'clock in the morning and the first thing he says is, I cannot believe I was on stage with one of the world's greatest rock bands. Don't you want to be part of that trigger? Don't you want to be part of that story? Get him involved in there. It's like buying a car and then being annoyed you've got to pay for gas. You know you're going to have to pay, but you don't want it to drive the emotion. No one's ever walked into a Ferrari dealership and gone, so how many miles per gallon does it do? You know, no one's ever done that. So you know that the money is going to be required. You know that there is going to be a pay up. But that's not what's going to get them to say yes. You've got to get them involved in a passion, a story, a belief, a trigger, a motivation. There's got to be something. And then you've got to push with that first.
It's always about the story and the hero's journey. You just got to figure out what that is for you.
And what character you play and what character are they going to play?
So true. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It's a hard thing to do.
But worth it.
But well worth it. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
Nothing. All of my mistakes led to the education and the empowerment. So I wouldn't change anything of my upbringing. I wish I'd have learned to fail faster and often. So if I had to give myself one tip, it would be that. But it's all in the education.
We don't look at failure as a good thing, do we?
Sadly, no, but it's the greatest thing.
We learn in the valley, not on the top of the mountain.
Yep.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Be careful who you listen to and fail often.
It comes back to who are you surrounding yourself with?
It absolutely is.
Where are they going, and are they going your direction, which means you need to figure out what your true north is, which too often and not, most of them don't know. If people would like to learn more about you, the books, the mastermind, and everything else you do, or maybe book an experience, how do they do that?
Well, you can get the book for free because I did it on video at goforstupid.com. That way you'll get to see me read the book to you, all 12 chapters. You can visit Steve D. Sims, D for dashing, and only one M in Sims, stevedsims.com. That's my website. You'll find out about speakeasies and Sims Distillery and the books and the podcast there. But you can also just head over to Instagram or anywhere that you consume your social at Steve D. Sims. I'm Steve D. Sims, absolutely everywhere.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
What do you want to do that maybe other people would look at you and say, oh, that's stupid. You could never do that. Well, we showed you going for stupid is possible. And anything is possible, especially when you ask. So what's holding you back from living your best life? Why not go for it? At least you don't die with regrets. Don't forget, if you want something, just ask for it. Why decide if someone else will say no with at least trying yourself? And also figure out who your go-to group is, who supports you and pulls you up and isn't afraid to call you out for doing too little. By the way, who do you know who would enjoy this episode? Would you do me a favor? Would you share it with them? I would appreciate that. Next week, we've got on Dr. Jamie Panetta to talk about controlling mental chaos in 4 simple steps. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.